Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live premiere. Appreciate it. Today we have some mild but arguably breaking news to do with the weather in Lucin, Utah. Most recently, there have been flash flooding in the area. Montello, Nevada has been somewhat impacted as well from what Weezer has said, her garden being flooded, very recent. And the reason why it's so important, this, and how it links to the Dylan Rounds case and discussion for today is, how does the flooding impact Dylan's possible burial area, right? If we're talking about the wash, washes can fill up. If there is flooding, there you go. One equals the other. And it could lead to maybe disturbance with the ground, the side of the walls. It could lead to a bit of erosion. You never know. We can get into it much deeper later on in this video, but be sure to stick around for that. And what we can also be doing to take things into mind of possible damage, we can look back at a previous article to do with the flooding, I believe in 2017, Montello, Nevada, which was to do with Luray Wash, I believe. And that can tie back in with the whole Dylan Rounds discussion, considering how Candice Cooley previously back then was talking about a wash in Lucin, which is the one what we looked at and analysed not that long ago, and it follows on into the Montello, Nevada side of the wash, which what we saw was Luray Wash. So you see all these like little connections going on, right? All different kinds of directions. And look at those articles later just to get an understanding of the true damage of this type of weather, the flooding itself, and how it can impact where Dylan could be buried at, right? You could, to be honest, you probably could highlight possible positives, but also possible negatives. So we'll try and balance it up today. Of course, as we do go along, feel free to share your thoughts, opinions, and reactions in the live chat on the right-hand side. And as well, to acknowledge from last night for people's presence, super chats, etc. Shout out to Graham, Cleo, Badger, Wanda in the background, and maybe the odd other person if I didn't remember their name. Shout out to all them. It was very good of them. Appreciate it. Okay. And as well, regarding yesterday's video, which I believe was more breaking news, it was breaking news, a new Justin Rounds post from Facebook hinting at a possible third individual being involved in the Dylan Rounds case. Be sure to check that video out. I'll provide a link down below in the pinned comment section, okay? So there's a lot going on in recent time. I think this is like 3 days in a row of breaking news. That's never been seen before on my channel in terms of that heavy focus. But it's all important, it's all relevant to the Dylan Rounds case, and we'll be making sense of it today, right? Because weather is an important factor, both when it comes to the murder and disposing of Dylan Rounds, and then the search and rescue trying to retrace and find Dylan Rounds. Weather factors can play a big role in how things are carried out and how stuff could be delayed, or areas are no-go zones at a specific time. So many ways of looking at it. And as said, we're going to get in deeper later on in this video. So make sure to stick around so you fully understand what's being talked about and the importance of what's currently going on. And as well, there is another Facebook post from some other person that was in Lucin either earlier today or just yesterday. And they've actually shown a picture, an actual picture of what the area looks like of one of the rivers. So we'll be looking at that as well and get a better understanding in general, okay? Is there anything else we need to look at? If there is time later on, we might look at another location on the maps to do with another individual. If we don't get time to that, definitely probably in the next video, okay? So I think to kick things all off, to allow people to join on into this video and catch up, we'll look at the comments from yesterday's video, see if there's any questions that need to be answered, see if there's any different unique points of views and opinions from last night's discussion. It might help, better some people's understandings in the chat, okay? Let's head on over right now. So I will just arrange it to the newest comments, and we start from the bottom. Got Tom Evans, good morning, good evening, good night, whichever time zone it is. Yeah, there we go. So as for Linda, just as a little update, it's somewhat under control at this moment in time, in case anyone's wondering. I guess we'll see what happens next. Just wanted to let people know. What else do we have here? Elena Jimenez, by chance, is he saying that it's just a matter of time? The second is already identified and the third will be ratted out. Okay, so this is to do with in response to last night's and that quote by Benjamin Franklin, which Justin reposted onto his page to do with the Dylan Rounds case. Okay, so by any chance, is he saying that it's just a matter of time? Yeah, it could be, because you apply it to the 2022 post by Justin Rounds saying, "You two are dead men walking, it's just a matter of time." So yeah, the fact of time probably does tie in. And a bit about saying the second is already identified. The second, what are you referring to, Don Hatley? And the third will be ratted out. Yeah, maybe. I guess if you talk about ratted out, being called out, dragged down by the other two, you could say Chase Venstra. I know Chase Venstra isn't officially linked to the Dylan Rounds case, but in terms of playing the blame game, Brenner has pointed the finger at Chase Venstra in the past when on that call to Justin Rounds when Brenner was in Weber County Jail. So you never know. Arada imagery. Justin is pointing the finger at Don Hatley. Dylan is dead. Brenner may as well be dead because he's not talking, as he suspects Don knows where Dylan's body is. Okay. Dylan is dead, fair enough, that's true. Brenner may as well be dead. Yeah, I guess with the death penalty and the situation he's in currently. I get that too. Yeah, fair point. Fair way of looking at it, right? Graham, Kurt Wadsworth, fess up. Has Kurt Wadsworth been as vocal recently? Anyone in the chat confirm whether they've heard of recent activity by Kurt Wadsworth or not, or has it just been quiet in general? As you know, I'm not looking all over the place at all times. I know in the past, Kurt Wadsworth was kind of active in some way or another, whether it just be discussions about him or him being present, like on Pancake's channel, these live call-ins, panels. Does any of that happen like anymore or not? Just let me know. Weezer, chat quit before I got this in. There is a large group of sundowners that came through Montello a couple of times a year. They always stop at the bar and have refreshments. I don't know if Don associated with them. They're always decent and friendly, but I've heard the rumours that they are pretty rough. Okay, kind of interesting. I know Weezer has said over the course of time in the Dylan Rounds case, maybe it was just a one-off, but you get the odd character visitor coming by at the bar or gas station, and it can be a bit shady at times or a bit mysterious. I don't know how often it happens, but you know, an area like that where it's kind of quiet away from the police, you never know. I saw another comment by someone, I don't know if it was Guidance in the chat last night, saying something like how it's strange, interesting how Montello seems to be a place where people go to hide to get away from the police. Maybe. Even though it's like in the open and it's quite vast, it is further away from the different resources and like the police. So, you know, things are less likely to come on down to visit. Just like with the Dylan Rounds case, if the police might not have been as full on because of all the distance, then when it comes to a lesser crime, something as not as important, maybe response rate isn't as effective or fast. Was there anything else I need to mention about Kurt Wadsworth? Was there any other key individuals that have gone quiet? You know what? In the chat, just feel free to give a list of names of key characters, individuals that have been involved in the Dylan Rounds case for some time but have gone quiet ever since. Like maybe Kurt Wadsworth, more so Black Dove, possibly Shack Lady. Just feel free to list names you know of which have gone very quiet since. List them in the chat, and if you want to talk about it, feel free, because it could open up to new discussions. I mean, if at some point Dylan Rounds was found, do you think Black Dove would make an appearance on YouTube again? Should we do a poll just roughly about that? The poll can be, will Black Dove return back if Dylan Rounds is found? Will Black Dove appear on panels or not? Just let me know your thoughts, okay? What else do we have? Christy B, not triggered when we talk about how a person looks like. I can't stand when people say, like, oh, he has a big nose and you can clearly see he is a serial killer. I don't think I've heard that statement before. I've heard the one where they say, if you've got a big nose, you've been telling quite a few lies. Like in Idaho 4 case. Or, okay, that's what I meant with comment the other day. Okay. See, like, if you're in the UK and you come across like people with lots of hoodies on and in a group, you could think, oh, bit dodgy. They might have an item hidden up the sleeve or pocket. And, you know, often that can be the case. Sometimes you make an early judgment. It might not always be accurate, but it might be to protect yourself from, you know, getting into trouble, getting hurt by someone. So it can apply at times, but it doesn't always. Now, what Christy says about the Idaho 4 case, I've not followed it to that extent, so I wouldn't know about the big nose thing. The only thing I felt with the Idaho 4 killer was they looked like a psychopath because of their eyes, their facial expression. It was lacking. You know, when you maybe like if you compare it to other cases and other serial killers, it kind of just had that atmosphere about it. Anyway, Cleo content 100%, double dose me. Double the pills. Yeah, I've been quite full on recently with the back-to-back videos. We've had 3 back-to-back breaking news Dylan Rounds videos and 2 to 3 Warlight Ref After Dark videos back-to-back as well. I've been a very bad boy recently. What else do we have? Angela Cole, welcome to the channel, Angela, saying, what did James Brenner slip and tell Don Hatley when he was drinking? You know, there might be a possibility. I mean, we've seen just at times when Kurt Wadsworth has been drunk and then other times he hasn't. Certain stories have switched and changed. Maybe at a point he was telling the truth. Maybe that was when he was under the influence of alcohol. Maybe not. Could it apply to Brenner too? Possibly. We've not really seen Brenner drunk before, but if there's anyone in the chat, if there's any Montello locals watching right now, in the background, whatever, let me know if you have seen Brenner drunk in the past. In a bar, outside, in Montello, wherever. How did Brenner appear when he was drunk? Was he just aggressive? Was he more verbal? Did he slip up, slip of the tongue, tell the truth accidentally? Let me know your thoughts. Just get a better idea and understanding of what Brenner could be like, or what he was like on the 28th of May 2022 of going to the barbecue to Don Hatley's place, right? Wanda, you're welcome. Shout out to Wanda once again for her super chat. What do you have here? Johnny on the spot. I don't know if this is a poem. Indiana, grab your quill and your paper or toilet paper and then begin writing. Johnny says, our man, my distant British bloke, way over and across that other pond, way the hell over there off that far eastern shoreline, and still yet on even more and way the hell up into the north, and damn, are we freaking there yet? Is this life maybe? Damn. So I'm supposing we won't be regularly meeting down at the jolly old corner street pub for a few pints on the weekend, my good man. I don't drink alcohol. Anyways, yeah, keep this stuff alive, my man. Maybe something new will go down with Mr. Kenny Veach. Where the hell is that guy? Damn, maybe he's way clear the hell over there with yo's guys, and no wonder we can't find his ass. Good day, old chap. Okay, so reading this kind of changed my accent, but I don't know what into. Probably very broken English. So you got Johnny. Johnny's still hanging around. There we go. What else do we have? Bob Farrell. The Farrell. There we go. Farrelling Farrell is here. Farrell in a barrel. Oh, yeah. There we go. See, this is what I mean. We've got these like nicknames lighthearted for a range of different people in the chat, in the case. What about Bob in a barrel, Farrell? Farrell in a barrel. I think that'll do. What does he say? That other bar, maybe Area 52. I think that's the name of it. It's not far from the Cowboy and Saddle Saw bar. Yeah, well, you never know. If anyone can confirm it, feel free. I believe it was Quintessential Organics that suggested about the Area 52 focus in the past with a person called Annie, a person Dawn, Brenner or something, all going down to that bar or so at some point talking, and Annie working there. Correct me if I've got bits and bobs messed up there, but we're just doing it very quick and rough on the spot. Area 52, I think it might have had a different name on the maps. It took some time to find, but eventually got to it. But when looking at the maps, you couldn't really see any bars unless it was giving a false reading on the maps. But there's a bar somewhere, yeah. It's not like a well-known one. If you do try searching it online, it doesn't seem to come up. And yes, it does say Area 52, but that doesn't mean it's not to do with aliens, in case you're wondering. It's not some military base, okay? So, you never know. You never know. And this is in response, what Bob's talking about, to do with the Don Hatley photos last night when we looked at some slightly newer ones of him. He was bigger as well, but he appeared to be in different bars, biker bars or something like that. Just trying to understand where that bar was, where he was at, what state, what county, places like that. Guidance was saying how she wanted to focus in on the background because it was a bit blurry or so. Feel free to point it out, Guidance, exactly which photo or which spot you wanted zooming in and enhancing. Okay, and I think, Guidance, there was a comment earlier on in this video that was responding to you. I think it was Weezer's comment. Okay, feel free to check it out. So yeah, Bob Farrell. Do we have much going on with Bob Farrell in the background? Have a quick look. He's not done any slots recently. Bob, are you going to do more slots or live? Okay. Channels, community. Huggy Bear, show your face, Huggy Bear. I don't know who Huggy Bear is. Whatever that is. We're not going too much on here, right? They think because they are ex-felons, they're going to tell me whether or not I can say their fake names. Huggy Bear and his fake voice. He said, I've talked to him. Yeah, right. I'm sure it was another fake name he has. Okay. Huggy the Bear, Barney the Dinosaur. Who knows who is who? Let's return back to my comments. So Bob Farrell popping on in. Obviously, Bob hasn't been as active recently here, but then again, he's probably busy with his own channel. But Bob Farrell, obviously, because you're tied in with the Dylan Rounds case and interested, make sure to keep up to track and up to date with some of my latest breaking news videos so you fully understand what's going on in the case, Bob. Okay? And if Bob isn't present here, someone pass on a message to him. Okay? Brian Reeves saying the third person is Dylan Rounds himself. He's the only one besides the killer or killers who knows exactly what happened to him, and he can't tell us what happened because he's dead. That's true. That is 50% true. But the other 50% isn't, in the sense that only Dylan would know who truly killed him, yes. But does Dylan know who disposed of him? No. Does Dylan know where he's been buried? Not really. Does that make sense? Because unless some people want to get spiritual, hallelujah, get the train coming on in with the blessings and the super chats, we can go there later. But yeah, if you think about it, Dylan Rounds at the time, doing whatever at the grain shed, in or out, yeah, and then sees Brenner, confrontation, face to face, and then he's taken out. Dylan seeing who it was and what happened to him, but then after that losing consciousness and then passing away. Depends if it was instant or not. And as Dylan dies knowing who was the one responsible, right? So yeah, that's true, Brian. But in terms of the disposing of Dylan, Dylan is no longer alive whilst being disposed. So Dylan isn't consciously there, awake or alive to actually see his body being buried as to where it is. So it doesn't really apply there. And there is still that possibility that Dylan Rounds might not even know who took him out, depending what the situation was. You know, if it was an ambush, if it was a cowardly, cheap shot. So if Dylan had his face looking at a wall and his back showing towards Brenner, let's say, what happens if Brenner snuck up on Dylan and shot him from behind and it was a fatal instant death? Dylan wouldn't have seen who was stood behind him, right? So that is like a little counterpoint to, you know, Dylan going to the grave with a secret, unable to reveal it to anyone. Dylan might not have much of a secret, just depends on if he was face to face with the killer at the time, depending if Dylan was face to face with one of Brenner's associates or friends at the same time. Because if not, and it was all an ambush, blindsided, Dylan wouldn't even know himself. But we have an idea, though, because of the evidence, the incriminating 27-second footage of Brenner in his trailer cleaning a gun with blood on him, which belongs to Dylan. So we can acknowledge that at least. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah? Anything else we need to acknowledge? Well, I guess I can do it a bit later. Pack and go. Hi, I'm glad to be here. Whip and go. Yes, hello. Rose Herpner. What's on the roof? What roof? Roof at the grain shed? I don't know what Rose is talking about there. What roof? It looks like a gun or something else. Oh. Well, I don't know what roof you're talking about. Does anyone in the chat know? Twin Mama saying, Warlike Raf, that McGrew's bar is in O'Brien, Oregon. I verified it by the Monday night tacos sign hanging over garage. Lol. Also, my thoughts on the quote by Benjamin Franklin. If we are looking at it like you are, would be Dylan Rounds, deceased. Jim Brenner, nearly deceased. So then who would that leave? The mom? Just a theory. They're having some family issues right now. So when you say family issues right now, Twin Mama, are you referring to like what I've covered in my recent video, or have you seen more stuff going on in the background? Feel free to confirm. But yeah, I guess that explains it. The bar which Don Haley was at the time. Yeah, that's good to know. Thanks for confirming, Twin Mama. I don't know how long Twin Mama has been around for, but she's been present on and off, so that's good. And yeah, the bit about the comment saying, you know, you've got Dylan Rounds, the one who's deceased, the one who's dead, Brenner nearly, whether that be because of his age in general or because he was on the verge of receiving the death penalty, even though he's not anymore, but he could somehow down the line. And then there's that one person, you know, remaining. So you see a bit of a pattern going on at the moment. There's a couple of people that are thinking in line with another, that the two dead include Dylan and possibly Brenner, because Brenner will be going that way, some way or another, and it still leaves one other person. So at the end of the day, there is still that consensus that, put aside the odd little different opinions there, but it still resorts back to that one individual out there who has the secret, who's still around, maybe not been taken in or taken out. Who could it be? Who could it be? That's still up for interpretation. What else do we have? Rose, I didn't have the money, but that goes with being old 72. Be safe and careful. Okay, understandable. Brad, how do you say that? Ganja? Brad Ganja? I don't know. Brenner knows he could have told 2 people what happened. Did those 2 people rat on him? That could explain Justin's knowledge of 3 people who know the truth. The post could simply imply that the only way the truth could have remained a secret is if the 2 people he told were dead, but they aren't dead, so Brenner is up creek. Basically, a cryptic post to stick it to Brenner and implying he should have told a friend if he was trying to keep the truth a secret from the law. Well, if that was the case, implying he shouldn't have told a friend if he was trying to keep the truth from the law. Yeah, if like friends can screw one another over at times, I get that. To save one's own skin. I think in other terms it's to save one's own bacon, but I don't know why you want to be saving bacon if you're a vegetarian. It's completely random that. Forget that. But yeah. Anything else to acknowledge here? Not at this moment in time. Of course, people have different opinions. Be sure to listen down below. Jacqueline Rampley, Ed left his camper and told Brenner he could live in it. Is that when Brenner took Ed's gun? Interesting. I mean, yeah, could be. Could be. Who told the story originally? Kurt Wadsworth, I believe. I mean, just quick question. What if that really was the case, why would Ed Harshberger leave a gun in his trailer unattended for? Seems a bit reckless, right? Anyone could get hold of it, and that's what happened. But as well, you know, maybe firearms can be kind of costly and valuable too, both money-wise and one's own safety protection. Why leave it laying about? You know what I'm saying? Is it because Ed Harshberger already has his own firearm and it was just a spare one in the trailer? Maybe. Just seems a bit reckless, at least, leaving it laying about. Is that it for the comments? Oh, okay. So we got through all that. Let's move on to the main part. So I think it's time to discuss the breaking news to do with the weather in the area of Lucin, Utah in most recent time. If you have just joined, welcome. So the order of how we're going to do this is I'm just going to give you a brief backstory and talk about the weather in Lucin, Utah, and then share with you a photo of one of the areas in Lucin and how it looks and how it can apply to searching for Dylan Rounds, okay? So basically, very recent, I guess, there's been heavy rainfall, and because it's not rained for a bit, and it's in an intense burst, and the ground's obviously not really saturated and quite hard, it can just lead to the flooding in that sense, and heavy rainfall, consistent amount of it, can lead to flooding. And, you know, it's not the first time this happened, it's happened in the past, okay? But when you're applying it to Dylan Rounds, okay, it's happened in Montello, Nevada recently. Weezer did leave a comment last night saying how her garden was flooded, not being able to get out there or see to it just because of the volume of water. So that's understandable. I don't know how long it will take for the water to drain away or if services are needed to be brought in. It's not to the same extremes, nowhere near as the 2017 flash flooding, because that also coincided with the wash overflowing too, I believe, and Montello being flooded. I did do a video of some of that with the photos too back then. We can even revisit it today to re-jog people's memories and look at some maybe alternative photos as well with a description of it, okay? So, Montello, Nevada. I don't know if it followed a certain order, like areas in Montello, Nevada flooded first before Lucin did, or if it was at the same time. I guess it depends which way the clouds are coming on over, the rain, right? I do remember in the past when we were talking about the rain on the 28th and the 29th of May 2022 to do with the Dylan Rounds, you know, murder on that weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and was trying to understand what the weather was like at the time then. Did it impact or change the possible directions of how an individual was going to dispose of Dylan, right? Were some areas inaccessible because of possible flooding, or it just being very watery and wet and you could get stuck in it, like going down into the wash? We looked at those factors, and the locals did chip in with their experiences of how the weather was at the time and how it may have started here and then passed on into Lucin. Maybe the same's happened again this time round, right? Now, I guess what you got to do first of all is compare, contrast, right? So the recent rain and flash flooding, you know, if Weezer is watching right now or anybody else, can you confirm to whether what's happening now is to the same extent as back on the 28th, 29th of May 2022? Is it the same or less? Or is the flash flooding and the rainfall much more intense this time round? Okay. From how it was described by I think it was two individuals, like a couple, witnesses, who were at Little Pigeon Mountains on the 27th and early hours of the 28th of May 2022. Campers out there in Lucin, Utah, and said that the early hours of the morning when waking up, maybe around 5 a.m. or kind of like around that time, it was, how did you use the word? The rain was hellacious. That sounds pretty extreme. Hellacious rainfall. Now, at that time, did it lead to flooding? I don't know. No one really commented on it back then. Though this time round, there obviously appears to be flash flooding. Okay? So that's what I mean. It's just trying to understand, comparing and contrasting to what was experienced back then on the day Dylan was murdered and possibly disposed of same day. And then fast forwarding to present day, present time now, right? Right now, it might not be, it's not to do with disposing of Dylan, but it's to do with trying to search for Dylan rounds. And of course, for, you know, towards the end of 2022, winter time, and even dragging on into early 2023, it just delayed searches. People couldn't go out there because the ground was hard, rock solid. There was a lot of snow, obscuring vision. Hard to actually get out there in the first place, possibly getting stuck, needing to be rescued, possible dangers of slipping, sliding, you know, all kinds of factors to take in mind. So with those delays, it doesn't help, right? It just puts things on the back burner to try and find Dylan, and you want to do it as soon as possible. Now, if we've got heavy rainfall, right, does that slow down delay searches as well, just like with snow and the cold weather? It does. And what Candice Cooley said in the early days of the Dylan Rounds case, right, I think in June, that the bloodhound group cadaver dogs were put off being used because the police believed that because of the rain, it dropped to a 20% success rate in dogs finding Dylan's scent, right? So that's an example there. As well, if you got heavy rainfall and its areas are flooded, you might not be able to get down to the area. You might not be able to cross a road, drive through a wash if the road goes into the wash. If there's been any erosion, like extreme damage caused to the roads or bridges, then you kind of like blocked out, locked in, whichever, you just can't get through. So there's that as well. And if there's certain key search areas you want to be focused on, you might not be able to go to those specific spots because it could be flooded. And not much you can do. You've got to wait until the level waters go down, evaporate, drain, wherever it may be, right? So there's all different factors there to take in mind. So if we're applying it to what some of us may think and what Candice Cooley seems to think, right? That possibilities that Dylan Rounds is buried somewhere in a wash, more so the walls of the wash walls, makes you think, if those places possibly have flooded, besides it delaying searches taking place, possible ones, is there any chance that it could either unveil where Dylan Rounds is buried at, right? If you're buried in the wash wall and then you got the water and the erosion, could it break away and then expose Dylan being buried in a particular spot? Is that possible? That would be a positive in a way, because if you're in the area searching about, then you're going to see likely a clue, or you're probably going to see it firsthand Dylan or some kind of skeletal remains, right? But then the negative would be, depending on the force of the water and the volume, the amount and length of time of the flow of water, if it is quite intense and it's enough to wear away the wall of a wash, part of it, expose the remains, but the force of the water pushed those remains out and pushed it downstream or wherever, where does it go from there? And is anyone going to know? You get what I'm saying? If you don't know where Dylan Rounds is to begin with, then you can't really gauge where he's going to end up if he's washed down the wash, right? If he was washed down the wash, how far does he go down? And once reaching an end point, is it just like left exposed like that? If something did wash down and collected at the bottom of the wash at the bottom of a river, is it just left there in the open? That would be another issue, because then if left exposed and open and no one knew about it, who's going to get there first? People or animals? Most likely animals. Animals are going to come on down and salvage the bones and then spread it about. So it can have a knock-on negative effect. In the short term, the positive is if there is flooding, heavy rainfall, it can lead to things being exposed, soil being slightly disturbed, dirt being washed away, revealing something. And if it's Dylan, that's a positive, might make it easier to find, easier to retrieve Dylan. But then a negative is, in the mid-range to long term, depending on the levels of water volume, consistency of it, and intensity, it could wash the body downstream wherever. And it depends if people know in time to respond or react. You get what I'm saying? Does Candice Cooley know about the flash flooding in the area? It also makes me think, when I look back now, if those witnesses on the 28th of May said that it was raining hellaciously in the early hours, and it kind of followed on throughout the day and more so on the 29th, did it lead to flooding back then? Like, if Dylan Rounds was temporarily buried in the grain shed or the undisclosed location which Candice Cooley recently referred to, where the dogs acted out because of a possible scent of Dylan, does it tie in with that hellacious rain? So like 28th of May 2022, Brenner temporarily disposes of Dylan because Brenner possibly feels that he can't go to the true desired spot yet because of the rainfall. It's a bit awkward. Maybe the ground's a bit too wet, a bit too sticky. You might get stuck. Or if it's slightly flooded, it might make it harder to go in and then get out of the vehicle and start digging away. It might not be practical, so waiting the following day or two to then go to a better spot when the weather has cleared up a little bit. See what I'm saying? How these possible delays, changes of directions occur because of the way the weather is at the time, right? If it's, just to put it very simple and obvious, if it's flooded, you're probably not going to be disposing of someone in the wash, if you get what I'm saying. If it's dry, you probably will go down to the wash and then you can dig away at the walls or the ground and then bury Dylan there, cover him over. Another example could be, if it's very cold weather, it's very icy, you're probably going to be more restricted to how you can dispose of someone at a time like that, because you can't really bury them in the ground. The ground itself is rock solid. So you got to find other means. And this is what I'm talking about. It feels like within the Dylan Rounds case, the directional evidence is lacking. Evidence which could point to a certain direction, a route where Dylan was taken and disposed of. If the phone pings, which we don't know of in the background, are enough, that's fine. But if none of that is helpful or useful, you could track back, look back at the weather reports, and how it may have appeared visually at the time, and use that as possible directional evidence. If the weather's a certain way, it might encourage the killer or assistants to go to a desired location to dispose of Dylan. If the weather is a different way, it might make them go in a different direction or to a different type of environment. And then you can take in mind that if the weather does change in between, then it might lead to a second desired spot, another form of desecration taking place and removing and burying elsewhere. So I do feel like if you're able to track back and you could get rich evidence or rich information and data to do with the weather, Lucin area, and so on, at the time relevant, you could possibly use it as directional evidence as like a starting point, right? But yeah, I know some people could be quite strong-minded, like Candice Cooley, focused on the Wash area. And if that truly is the case, it refers back to how if you do have this heavy rainfall and you do have this flooding, it could be problematic, right? I mean, my question to people right now, if you know, feel free to answer. We could even do a poll as well. We'll do a 2-in-1 just to see what people say. From the 28th of May 2022 up to today's date and year 2023, has it rained? Has it flooded? Any flash floods occurring in the Lucin, Utah area between 2022 to present day 2023? Has it flooded in between that period? Yes, no. I'm going to say flooding, I mean like flash flooding, a great volume of water, rainfall to cause flooding in the likes of a wash, a river. Let me know, okay, if you do actually know. Feel free to vote or leave a comment in the chat down below, because then that can provide a decent understanding of where things are at, okay? I just thought that in addition to that, what we're talking about, it's appropriate to share with you the photos of the wash area in Lucin, Utah. Now, relevance, the dating of these photos was in 2022, just before winter time, okay? And it shows the wash what we've looked at, the one which is parallel to the pond and the grain shed property. You follow it all the way. That's where those track marks were, which we saw in the past, mentioned by Candice Cooley, which went towards the Montello way and wash up there, like Luray Wash, that one. So, as I just said before, to put it into perspective, okay, yes, there is great depth to these washes. So a certain volume of water is required and necessary in the first place to fill it. But even if it's a certain level, it can still wear away the possible walls of the wash, eroding it, breaking it down. I mean, look at that midsection there, back there. You can see it looks like it has eroded away because you got a decent looking rock wall there, okay? But then it breaks away and, it seems to have crumbled, right? Because it's kind of like exposed. It is, I don't know what you could say. It's like it's not all the same wall. It kind of like breaks away part of it, so it's left exposed, right? Does that make sense? So something like that can happen with time, with erosion, with water. And, if it's been dry for a fair bit, it can get a bit cracked, get a bit hard, a bit crumbly, and then pair that with the force and presence of water, rainfall, all of a sudden, like a shock to the system in a way. You've got to be on the lookout for this. I mean, maybe some of you remember Ty Corbin was at the Wash at some point. Was it in 2023? Maybe. I think it was. And he was like digging away at one of the walls and everything was like crumbling away and it looked very dry. And that's just with a little shovel, a little spade. So you think about the force and volume of water could do greater damage. Just let me know your thoughts in the chat to what you think, okay? I believe these photos were taken by Candice Cooley in the past as we're driving through the wash. Yeah. Got a couple more. There you go. So, yeah, it's narrow here. You think about in certain areas where it's more narrow, like the water volume is more concentrated. So if you had only a certain amount of water in a wide area, it wouldn't look that deep, the depth. But then if it was concentrated down a certain area where it was more narrow, it kind of bunches the water up, and the only way for the water to go is up. So it looks like the levels rise, and then it'll be reaching the sides of the rock walls higher up, right? Now, some of these rock walls, especially the ones on the left, look a little bit smoother, right? The ones on the right are a little bit rocky and bumpy. If you're imagining the flash floods as of right now, what's it doing to the area? Is it causing damage? Is it breaking away, crumbling, or not quite to that extent? Even if the flooding wasn't extremely bad, it can still assist in the long-term process of erosion and washing away dirt, revealing stuff. It might not even be Dylan Round's remains that might be washed away or revealed slightly. It could be other pieces of evidence or bits of clothing, you never know. It actually makes you think of that random John Deere cap that was found by Kaylee, and then Ty Corbin talked about it in his video on the side of the road. If that was never found, could that have been washed away in the flooding recently? I don't know. It makes you think. Is there any reflection in that mirror? No, not really. Move on. And there you go, much wider here, part of the wash, track marks too. I don't know if those are the track marks that were caused by them at the time driving through, or it was like looking back at the original track marks, which dated back to June the 5th, 2022. Not quite sure. Never really got an answer from that. But you see the depth of the wash itself and the walls too, and the condition that they're in. They appear very dry and a bit crumbly here, but right now it might be a little bit of a different story. What's the next slide? So the next slide, what we're going to go on to is most recent, latest, newest photo of an area in Lucin, Utah, right? And it's relevant to the main discussion talking point of this video with the recent flash floods again. So this was posted 9 hours ago. And he was saying that everyone, this is Lucin, Utah currently. Just wanted y'all to know and be aware. I do have a close-up image of that photo on the left. The one on the right was a video, but it was only like 10 seconds long. There was no audio, and the quality and camera angle wasn't that great at all. So there's no point in even playing it, believe me. But yeah. Now, this person that posted it, why were they in the Lucin, Utah area most recently? Is it because they were just camping, visiting, passing by, or were they looking for Dylan Rounds? Because this was just a random post on Facebook, which just came on up. It wasn't tagged to Dylan Rounds. It wasn't in the Find Dylan Rounds community. It was just a standalone post to do with the area of Lucin, Utah. Kind of interesting that, considering Lucin, Utah is classified as a ghost town. So here's the close-up of it. Somewhere within Lucin, Utah, this is taken at. Now, maybe to some of you, it'll jump to your mind as to where exactly this is. I'm not quite sure. I'm not entirely sure. If I had to guess on the spot, I would say it's as if over that way is Lucin Hill. Here is the dirt road which actually drives on into the wash area. On the left-hand side, but maybe back a little bit, is the pond area. Okay? And I could be completely wrong, okay? But there was no true description given as to where exactly this was in Lucin, Utah. But it appears to be a road which goes into the wash area. And if you're thinking about it, if I compare this to this, what I take from Google Earth just earlier on today, I was just wondering if this was like the same like location. So basically, this road here, what you see, the dirt road, kind of looks like a dirt road or a gravelled road. The gradient goes down a little bit and it seems to drop into a lower section, which appears to be a wash because when you look on the left-hand side, you can see like a wash wall there. Not quite so much in depth, but as you know, the length of the wash and the width of it and how it twists and turns can vary depending how far up or how far down you are on the wash, right? So I was thinking, this dirt road, it descends into a bit of a ditch, looking like a wash resemblance. If we look here, you see the road, dirt road, as it descends down into the wash, as we've seen. It seems to have the same gradient, and you know the way it dips on down into it looks almost the same as here, right? That's what I would say. Correct me if I'm wrong. The slight colouring of the road, where it looks a bit orangey, yellowy in certain spots, kind of looks similar to what we see down here, right? Around it, the patchiness. The patchiness on the side of the road could be the same as what we see here, with some of this vegetation, bushes being slightly scorched and not lush green, just like burnt. You see it on the right hand side, you see a bit on the left hand side, and you see more over that way. Those orangey, yellowy spots. It does seem to check out with what we see here, right? Let me know your thoughts if this is the exact spot. Take in mind, I'm doing this all blindly, so I could be wrong, but it does look kind of similar. Now, as for the background, it appears far right hand side, you can see like a bit of a black patch. That appears to be more mountains in the distance, but further back. And if you're thinking of mountains further back, pardon me, the ones over there, more on the right hand side, which are out of shot here. Maybe we can go on to maps later if need be. As for the main like hill, small mountain back there, which you see centered the screen, not that big, not that great in size, but enough to stand out. That does look like Lucin Hill, as you see over here. Like the tip of it, the rockiness. It's very rocky on top, as you can see, just like how it's rocky in colour at the tip going across there, where it's a bit black. The gradient of it, how it slopes down on the left, is the same how it slopes down on the left there. Can you see? Yeah. And then as for the pond itself, it's back this way. So in terms of directions, basically, this photo was taken looking south towards Lucin Hill. And behind this photo, looking up north, on the left-hand side of this photo will be Lucin Pond, which is here. Okay. Photo taken down here on that dirt road, looking that way, in which you see Lucin Hill back there. And behind the guy that took the photo, back this way north, on the left-hand side, is the pond area. So it would have been interesting to see, besides the wash, it being kind of flooded, what did the likes of the pond look like? Was the pond overflowing? You know, makes you think. Or was there enough drainage? I don't know, because we've not seen any photos. But I do feel a little bit more confident now that I'm looking in the right spot, the right area. I guess the only other thing to acknowledge, are they overhead lines on the right-hand side? It's kind of faint, those like little poles. Are they overhead lines? I don't know. But that could give it away too. So if this is truly the wash where Dylan Rounds could be buried at, somewhere down it, then it could be somewhat negatively impacted by the flow of water, right? When looking at it here, It doesn't look extremely full, right? But as said, it depends where you are down the wash. And still, if there is incoming rain, if it's raining right now or raining in a few days' time, it's just going to add to the volume of the water that's already present, right? I said there's different ways of looking at it. It could be very negative, in which there's a lot of the water, rainwater, which may expose or displace Dylan's remains, and it makes it harder to retrieve Dylan because he's moved once again. And if that doesn't happen because it's mild and it's not flooding too much, or it's only short term, it can still contribute in some way, shifting the sides of the rock walls, maybe shifting a little bit of debris, shifting a bit of dirt, maybe revealing something, exposing an item. It does make you think, right? Just want to know your thoughts. I'm sure maybe I could have done a poll already by now by the possibilities of this flash flooding. Was there a response? No, the one. Right, so I don't have it on screen right now, but I went to the comment section of this post and someone said, how can you describe it to us? Is it truly like flooding, flash flooding, or something else? And this person confirmed that it's flash flooding. So kind of on the more extreme scale, right? Yeah, that's what I've always been saying in the past. In the Dylan Brown's case, has it ever flooded the wash? Could it flood? Is it capable anytime soon? Could it impact if Dylan is buried somewhere around the area? Yes, no. And here we are now with the event of flooding at the wash. As you can clearly see, the water down there. And you could argue 9 times out of 10, there's never any water there. It's only when it rains, and when it rains a fair bit. Over a long period of time, consistent, or in a short burst, and very intense rainfall. On this occasion, that's what's happened. Short burst, intense. Is it continuing right now? I don't know. Weezer, if you're in the background, what's the weather like where you're at? Is it still flooded? Is there any more rainfall to come? Feel free to leave a comment down below and/or in the live chat so we get an idea of what's happening and what could it lead to, okay? Yeah, so I'd say I'm kind of satisfied with that. I think what we probably can do now is just to reflect back at the damage it can lead to when it's more intense, is the 2017 Montello flood. There is an article and there are a fair few photos to get through, so let's head on over there right now. So here is the article. Read that first and then we can get through the photos. The title of this being Flooding from Breached Nevada Dam Affecting Road and Rail Routes to Utah. Now, wasn't there a dam or some kind of dam wall within Lucin, Utah, which broke over time? I think Quintessential was talking about that. Quick question, when the wall or the dam wall broke in Lucin, Utah, impacting the Wash area, when did it happen? Recent time, 2022 when Dylan went missing, or long before that? If anyone can give a date, a year, feel free to do so. So this reads, Montello, Nevada, and this is to do with 2017, I believe. It doesn't seem to give the year, but that's when it happened. So, Montello, Nevada, flooding from a breached earthen dam continues to plague an Elko County town and has washed out a stretch of the highway just past the Utah border. And as officials get a better look at the scope of the damage, estimates of a fairly quick repair schedule, a week or so, may fall by the wayside. Nevada law enforcement reported Thursday that days of wet weather in the state had strained the 21-mile dam in Elko County, causing it to fail on Wednesday. Water from the reservoir went rushing out, flooding the town of Montello and compromising travel by road and rail. So, Ellen Berg, who is a Montello local, was present at the time, living there to see it happen and took photos, if you remember. Traffic on State Route 30 in Utah has been stopped at the state line as a large section of Nevada Route 233 has been washed out about 4 miles from the border. Boyd Ratliff, Assistant District Engineer for the Nevada Department of Transportation, said the stretch of the highway had been closed as a precaution once water started flowing over it. It says in quotes, "We haven't seen anything like this in our district in quite some time," Ratliff said. A long-haul trucking caught in the flooding won't soon forget his ordeal Wednesday night. Remus Spiridon, a truck driver for S&D Transport out of Montreal, Canada, was hauling a load on his way to California, but he ran into trouble on Route 233 and was stuck overnight surrounded by water. He described seeing the road begin to break apart near him and water rushing by. He couldn't turn around. "I pushed the gas. There was no turning back," Spiridon said. "I would have been dead." Wow, I would have been dead. That sounds pretty rough and dangerous, that, right? He made it through that stretch but had to stop a few miles down the road as the highway was awash with water. He didn't reach safety until Thursday morning. "I'm the luckiest guy on earth, at least for now," Spiridon said. Ratliff said NDOT engineers are evaluating the damage and drawing up emergency contracts to repair the highway and let drivers through again as soon as possible, hopefully within a week. But after an aerial tour of the damage Thursdays, NDOT's Trent Averett says their initial assessment of a week or so to fix the roads was way off. "I think it was about 200 yards of washed out roadway with a river still running through it, so we can't get there until that water's drained out," Everett said. "We have a lot of work to do." He noted that culverts are at capacity and the flooding created steep drop-offs along the highway, making travel too dangerous. He estimates it could take until March or April to get the work done. In the town of Montello, an unincorporated community in Elko County in northeast Nevada, emergency crews set up sandbags around homes and businesses. Tree. Flooding also had railroad tracks underwater on Wednesday and into Thursday. Union Pacific Regional spokesman Justin Jacobs said that the closure to 2 lines through northeastern Nevada had delayed both freight and commuter trains, including some bound for Salt Lake City. Those trains were being rerouted and were moving again Thursday, Jacobs said. Union Pacific has 2 rail lines that run between Salt Lake City and Elko, Nevada, meeting near Wells, Nevada, Jacobs explained. At one point Wednesday, both those lines were closed due to flooding and weather, but the more southern line has since reopened. For a little while, they were just completely stopped, but now I believe that earlier this afternoon was reopened, but there are several trains delayed, Jacobs said. There's no estimate when timeline which runs Montello has been flooded will reopen. There's still several intermittent washouts. There's still quite a bit of area with debris on the track, so our crews are out there right now still assessing. An Amtrak representative could not be reached for details about delays. Okay, so key word, a lot of delays, people being cut off from getting to places. So if you apply that right now with what's going on with the flash floods, you might not be able to cross over. If you're coming in from the Montello side, going into Lucin, Utah on a specific road, and you want to drive into the wash to cross over onto the other side, you're probably not really able to at this moment because it being flooded completely. So yeah, it might cut off certain routes to get there. I don't know completely, but it does cut off certain ways. And if you're trying to go out there looking for Dylan Rounds, it could be problematic, right? But then again, you could apply it to Aidan Clune. You're trying to look for Aidan Clune, more the other way, further back south. Isn't that going to be a bit difficult, a bit messy? I don't know so much about footprints, but if there's washes in the area down there, rivers, cut-off points, and if it's flooded, that could cause complications. If Aidan Clune is out in the open somewhere, the remains, is there a chance that those remains might be washed away, scattered about, if it's in a certain area where water meets, where water flows, and where it can gather? Just feel free to share your thoughts. It can have negative side effects, this. Right? Thought winter time was bad enough because it prevented searches from taking place for different missing people out there. But now if you got rain and a fair bit of heavy rain, it can help hide evidence further or move it on, right? So someone like Brenner or Don Haley, who might have helped or been the main one to dispose of Dylan Rounds at a point in time, right? Dylan could be on the move again if the rain, water washes him away, right? A little bit messy. Now let's go back to the top, and if I turn this off with like a magic trick, there you go. So we actually do have photos here, but unfortunately I can't seem to fit it into the same shot. Can I click on it? No, that's a shame now. So there's about 40 photos to get through, which seems quite a lot, but I guess we just go through it briefly, okay? Oh wow, I just noticed something just then. We'll refer back to it later on. You might have seen it. Apologies if it doesn't quite fit on the screen. There's not much I can do about it, okay? It's just the way it is. So 21, okay, caused flooding to the Union Pacific Railroad line near Lucin, Nevada, and flooded the town of Montello. So is this like just a normal road, or is it the track one? I'm not quite sure from this angle, but we have seen these photos before. Some of these photos are available at Luray Wash on Google Earth satellite imagery. If you go there, we have done it ourselves previous. But let's just go through these photos, okay? There you go. There's the railroad track. You can see how it's been washed away. The intensity of the water. This is in 2017, in case you're wondering. You see the sheer damage it can do by the power of nature. And if you was to apply an extreme scenario like this with searching for Dylan Rounds, it could be very, very problematic, right? Look at that. Move on. So you see this one. This is like one of the main highway roads, and the barrier is twisted, as you can see, into the water. You can see trees gathered on the ground, vegetation too. The road's just been completely washed away. The infrastructure completely destroyed. And in 2017, this seems to be at a time when it was winter time from the looks of it in the background. Yeah, wow, look at that. There's a different angle, as you can see. Railroad tracks. What's that one of? Montello. It's the same like thing. Somewhere in Montello from the looks of that. If anyone notices these buildings or exact locations, feel free to explain them in the chat if you want to. Then we got that road there. Just a different angle as what we saw beforehand. See the distance over that way. Another angle there. There you go. That is Montello. You got the Cowboy Bar Cafe. Cowboy Bar Cafe, yep. So, and you got all these like storage containers in the background. On the right, you've got the red one, and on the left, you've got a blue one. And if we zoom on down here, well, oh, it won't let me zoom in. Do you know that purple building? That's quite a long one, that. Or is it just my eyesight? It doesn't look that wide. You know the purple-looking building on the right-hand side near to Cowboy Bar Cafe? It doesn't look wide, but I never knew it was that long in depth. So what is that purple building? Is it a house? Does someone live in there? I heard Ron Tello say that's his building, but I think he was being a bit sarcastic. But if anyone can fill in the blanks, feel free to do so. Now, we'll probably have a close-up image later on, but one thing I just wanted to point out, take in mind, this is 2017, but can you see what's on the left-hand side, parked outside a Cowboy Bar Cafe? A yellow backhoe. Is that the same backhoe which is now at the grain shed property? Fast forward 2023. That's very interesting. I know Indiana left a comment somewhere saying how Kurt's backhoe, or one of them, was used, the bucket area, to raise the roof and keep it upright round the back of Saddle Saw Bar because the roof was going to collapse. I don't know if that's entirely true. I think Taylena said, "What are you on about?" when responding to Indiana. But at least here, 2017, that yellow backhoe, is it a works one? Or does it belong to Kurt Wadsworth? Interesting to see an item of interest, but many years beforehand. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. There we go, another angled photo. Good image quality, to be honest. You can see the, you call it rock wall, dirt wall, the ground, the base of it, of the road. How it's just crumbled away. How it's been weakened. That same can happen with the washes too. Yeah, seen that. There you go. Look at the extent there. Look how wide and vast it is in that area. Move on. Oops. Different angle there. You see the water level at that point is really, it looks really high up. Wow. And the intensity of it is fast flowing water. You can see it frothing just like at the mouth of Watch Her Crazy. She said she's got rabies all of a sudden. Hopefully she gets better, gets well soon. Move on here. Appears to be a vehicle on the railroad tracks, which is interesting. Now, is that vehicle designated to drive across the railroad tracks, specialised or not? Probably, well, it's obviously allowed to, but I don't know if it's driving directly on top of the tracks or standard wheels. But yeah, aerial shot there. Another shot there of the twisted fence barrier of the road. That looks completely knackered. And you can see it's falling into the water there. In the background, looking over that way, is Bald Eagle Mountain. And then on the right-hand side, way into the distance, you got Pilot Peak Mountain, right? Over that way is Tacoma Road. And over the mountains is going into Lucin, Utah. I believe this area is possibly Luray Wash, or at least near to Luray Wash, okay? We've seen that photo as well, where it's literally got like a hole in the ground and it's just dripping down like a waterfall. It looks really weird. I mean, the colour of it looks like chocolate milkshake. I don't think it's going to taste that nice if you are opening your mouth. There's another angle, aerial shot. See all the water. There's another one there. Road low to the ground. And yet still broken away. Erosion. Completely. There you go, that's up close. You can see it, how it's created like a hole in the ground from the looks of it. Force of the water. Wow. Photo here of a truck passing by and a white car parked by the side. Why is it missing a wheel? What's happened there? Chase Venstra stealing a wheel or two? I don't know. I'm not sure if this vehicle crashed or something. I don't know where the wheel's gone though. Don't really say. Oh, what's this? No, it doesn't really say. That's overflowing over the railroad tracks. Yeah. You see ice as well, it being winter time. That can be a bit problematic too. Look at that ice. Look at all that ice on the tracks. It's a lot of debris in itself. Well, obviously some of it will melt away, of course, but the vegetation debris and the rocks being displaced and moved, that can take time. What else do we have? Yeah. Yeah, so over that way is like Bald Eagle Mountain and then the rocks and the mountains, which is like on the border. You cross over into Lucin. Yeah, we saw this photo here. We matched it up in the past, didn't we? On the maps. A different angle there. Of course, if you want to look at the photos very slowly, you can rewind this video and pause it and take it all in if you want. It's quite messy, that one. That one too. There's a little pathway there. A dirt road, I think. Yeah, dirt road from the looks of it. Now, where is that? Is that Montello? Where about in Montello, though? I'm not quite sure. Is it at a ranch? There appears to be a boat as well on the right-hand side, parked up. Probably the one time it's actually in the right place. Yeah. What are we on? 35 out of 40. We're nearly there. I believe that's Montello, right? Yeah. You got the gas station down there where that brown roof is on the right hand side. One thing to acknowledge though, okay, across the road on the other side, you do have two lots of backhoes. As you can see, I don't know, maybe those two backhoes belong to the teams that have come on in to help and assist, I assume. Is what I mean. We don't want to get mixed up with whose backhoe is who. It's always good to be able to identify which hoe belongs to the owner, right? If you got loose hose, what do? You know? Wow. So that's the town of Montello really filled in with water, like a grid section all the way around the roads. Really badly affected. My quick little question is, okay, if anyone can answer, like the Montello locals, do you know the little graveyard, the cemetery in Montello? When it did flood in 2017, did it negatively impact the graveyard or the graveyard's burials within the whole of Montello, Nevada and the outer skirts too? Did the flooding ever cause any issues with the graves or not? Feel free to explain down below. There we go. Some not search and rescue. What would you call them? People coming on in to help assist. Some kind of authority. I think they've got sandbags down there too, as it was said about them. There you go. More sandbags being placed down, trying to divert the water. And then, as you see here, that backhoe just outside Cowboy Bar Cafe. It does look very similar to Kurt Wadsworth's, which is at the Grainshed property, 2023 onwards. But it could belong to anyone. It could be one of the volunteers or helpers coming on in, as we saw another set of backhoes elsewhere. But with it being outside Cowboy Bar Cafe, I don't know, it just seemed a bit of a coincidence in my opinion. So if it is Kurt Wadsworth backhoe, is this Kurt Wadsworth's one and only backhoe, which is now at the Grainshed property, or is it his second one? Anyone confirm? Feel free to do so. Are we back to the start? Yeah, we're back to the start. So I just wanted to share that with you overall as what's going on like right now. I don't know if there'll be any updates down the line. I tried looking for like weather reports or some kind of news article online, but that didn't really seem to come about. But maybe there will be an update. If there is, I will provide it, okay? Just wanted to share it with you because it does apply to the Dylan Rounds case because one, it's within Lucin, Utah, so the area has been impacted in some way. And two, the areas which are flooded, which appears to be the wash area, is supposedly where Dylan could be buried at. So I don't know if there's any negative correlation there or not. But as I said, feel free to share your additional thoughts, opinions, as well questions down below in the comment section, and they can be answered shortly, okay? And I think we'll leave it there for now. We'll see what happens next, of course, whether it be breaking news or just basic news. If it is basic or not much going on, then I can look at a different video, a different coverage topic next time to do with Dylan. There's still a couple of videos to do, so just be on the lookout for upcoming ones and we go from there. For now, thanks for watching, goodbye, I'll see you next time, good night.